Okay, so sit yourself on your lift and come into a cross-legged position and spend a little time just observing the levelness at which you sit. So just spend a little time, just maybe even close your eyes to start off with, and just feel, do my seat bones feel level? Does the skin of the seat bones feel level? Does the skin of the outside of the foot connect with the floor evenly on both sides? Or is one foot kind of just rolling onto the top of the foot, the other one is kind of sharply on the edge? So try and identify the evenness with which you sit. So if you're really careful and observant, perhaps you notice that what you thought was level sometimes isn't. Just open your eyes, look forwards, look ahead at eye height. Just spend a few moments just keeping your eyes looking directly forwards, keeping the eyes still in the sockets. Take deep inhalations and deep exhalations, listening to the sound of the breath. Deep inhalations, deep exhalations. Draw your shoulders down away from your ears. Press the perineum down into the floor and then lift up out of the perineum, out of the base of the spine. Bring your hands into Namaste. Press the palms firmly together. Lengthen from the armpits into the elbows, from the elbows into the heels of the hands, from the heels of the hands up into the fingertips. And then with an exhalation, allow your eyes to gently close. Filling the lungs evenly on both sides, emptying the lungs evenly. Filling the lungs from the bottom to the top, emptying the lungs from the top to the bottom. Just focusing on the perceived balance of the pose, how we connect with the floor, how the body rises up out of the floor. Gently draw your chin down to meet your chest. Spend a moment to seek to generate a genuine sense of gratitude for something or someone or somewhere. Hold on to that feeling of thankfulness holding that feeling of abundance in the heart area, and then release the backs of your hands down toward your knees, palms facing upwards. And then as you raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open. Just grip around your knees, lift and open your chest. Spend a few moments taking a deep inhalation in through the nose. I don't know if you can hear a slightly high-pitched sound. I haven't got tinnitus, so there's a weird high-pitched sound. So I'm hoping it's not coming across on the recording. Lift and open the chest. Drive the spine upwards. Take a deep inhalation in through the nose, and then turn to the left, drawing your abdomen across, your ribs across, your shoulders across. Listening to the sound of the breath as it enters, as it exits. Drawing the abdomen from the left to the right. Feeling how that connection with the floor remains balanced and even. Come back to the center, grip around your knees, lift and open the chest, drive the spine upwards. Take a good, strong, deep inhalation in through the nose. And then turn to the left, drawing your abdomen across, your ribs across. Listening to the sound of the breath, using the out breath to intensify the turn. And then very gently come back to the center. Just come off your lift and then sit back on your heels. So sometimes we just kind of mechanically just sit down on our heels, but sometimes it's nice to draw the back of the calf skin away from the back of the knee. So come forwards and then come down onto your head, and then place your hands right in the back of your calves, and then try and draw them away. And then you've got the kind of effort of trying to lift your head, but try and draw the backs of the knees away, backs of the calves away from the backs of the knees, rolling the calves out to the side so that you make really good contact with the backs of the thighs. Lift and open the chest, and then come forward into Supta Virasana, observing whether it feels any different to have moved the backs of the calf skin. Does it make any difference in the way that the legs connect to each other, the way that the legs connect to the floor? Just breathe evenly, listening to the sound of the breath, drawing the seat bones down towards the heels, stretching into the fingertips. So observe the area between the calves and the thighs. Having moved that calf skin away, does it feel more compact? Can you open up your armpits by trying to draw the armpits around to face the sides of the room, gathering the shoulder blades together as you go? Come up onto all fours Have your little fingers on the edge of the mat, stretch your thumbs towards each other, turn your toes under, and then come up into Adho Mukha Svanasana Dog with the head down. Just observe the pose, the feeling of the pose. This pose gives you a different feeling at the back of the knee. It gives you an open feeling at the back of the knee. So how does that affect the feeling of the pose? Tighten the kneecaps. Lift the legs as we've been doing, lifting the shins out of the ankle sockets, the kneecaps away from the shins, the thigh bone, the femur bone, right up into the hip socket. Press the front of the knee through to the back of the knee. Observe the feeling of the pose. Listening to the sound of the breath, but listening to the sound of the pose, audializing the pose, visualizing the pose through the feeling of the pose, visualizing the parts of the body that your eyes can't see, like the shoulders, for example, the backs of the legs, audializing the pose, feeling where the pose is strong. And if it's strong in one area, such as the shoulders, then activate the legs more firmly. Hit the fronts of the legs through to the backs of the legs. Press the palms of the hands more firmly into the floor. Spread the fingers, spread the palms. Keep the legs straight, swing the hips forwards, keep the arms straight. Come up into dog up. Pushing into the heels, drawing your lower ribs through, your arms turning the crease of the elbows to face the front. Pushing into the heels, lifting the front chest, feeling the stretch of the front chest. And then go back up into dog down. And observe how the pose feels different. Maybe it activates the front of the body, going into Adho Mukha, Urdhva Mukha Svanasana, dog up, whereas dog down activates the back of the body. Just observe whether Urdhva Mukha has brought any more activation into the front of the body. Come into dog up again, Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. Feel the stretch of the front of the body. Broadening the collarbone, lifting the sternum, pushing into the heels. And then back up into dog down. Observing how the previous pose echoes into the existing pose. Observing where the Urdhva Mukha Svanasana activates the front of the body, which you can take into Adho Mukha Svanasana. Okay, step the feet forwards. Let's come up into a standing position and just be in Tadasana, ready to go down into half Uttanasana. Just be in Tadasana, inner edge of the feet together. Just listen to how the body feels. Visualize the body, even though the eyes are looking forwards. Visualizing the body in 3 dimensions. Stretch into the fingertips, lift and open the chest. So we're developing perception of the pose through the senses. And then without looking, bring your feet as wide apart as your mat. So feel where the edges of your mat are. Turn your toes in. Feel that your feet are in line with each other, as in one's not forwards, one's not back. So without looking, identify that sense of balance from the feet. So it's not as easy as it sounds, is it? Finding that precise balance. Raise your arms, extend your arms up towards the ceiling, extend into the little finger side, stretch into the thumb side. And then hinge at the hips, come forwards, keeping your arms high as you come forwards, and then reach down, find the blocks. And then have a look at your feet. Are they level? So not as easy as it sounds, is it? Because I have to adjust my feet. The toes are in the right place, but one foot was further back than the other. So that sense of perceptivity isn't quite fine-tuned quite yet. Dig the fingers into the floor, fingertips into the floor, into the blocks. Lift the backs of the thighs. So perceive the backs of the thighs. Lift from the back of the knee all the way up into the seat bones. Turn the fronts of the thighs inwards. Where is the weight in your feet? Is it in your toes? Bring your weight into your toes and notice that your weight just transfers all the way into the fingertips. Hit the shins back so that the weight goes into your heels. Maybe at that stage adjust the position of your blocks so that they remain underneath your shoulders. Lift the shins out of the ankle sockets. Lift the kneecaps away from the shins. Lift the thigh bone and muscle up into the hip socket. Project the chin and the chest forward. If you can come down lower, come down a little lower. If you can find the floor without losing that action of the legs, then find the floor. Projecting the chin and the chest forwards, lifting the shins, lifting the kneecaps, lifting the thighs, pressing the heels down into the floor so that you can lift the calves away from the heels, lift the backs of the thighs away from the heels. Observe the pose. If you're protecting your back, just stay at half uttanasana, otherwise hook the thumb into the elbow, wrap your fingers around your elbows and do the same with the other arm. Hook the thumb into the elbow and wrap your fingers around the elbows and then hang down. Just observe the action of the legs. How do you perceive the body in 3 dimensions? Use the feeling to see the pose. Use the feeling to hear the pose. Observe where there are signals of strong sensations. So in this pose, can you feel the front of the body like you did in Urdhva Mukha Svanasana, or is it principally the back of the body? So work the fronts of the thighs through to the backs of the thighs. Work the fronts of the thighs inwards. Work the fronts of the knees into the backs of the knees. The fronts of the shins into the calf muscles. Lengthen the front chest. Breathe evenly and deeply. Release your hands down towards the floor. Just come back into half uttanasana. And then walk your hands away back into Adho Mukha Svanasana. So the hands are shoulder width apart this time. And then bring the feet hip width apart. So you can do that with your eyes as well as the feeling. So when you're in line, look away from your feet, look away from your hands, and just feel that you're in line. Maybe at first it doesn't feel like you're in line. So have a look with your hands, make sure that you are. Affirm with yourself that you're actually in line, and then go back into seeing the pose with the feeling of the pose, hearing the pose with the feeling of the pose, and let this be your neutral. Reset what you think is balanced, because often our perception of balance is wrong, and perhaps we have to reset it. Breathe evenly and deeply, listening to the sounds of the breath. Okay, step your feet forward, come up into a standing position, and then come up into Tadasana. So feel that your feet are touching, the inner edge of the feet are touching. Feel that the feet are stretching, the toes are stretching away from each other. From the big toe out into the little toe side. Feel that you can lift the shins out of the ankle socket. Lift the kneecap away from the shin. Lift the thigh muscle up into the hip socket. Feel that you can lift from the hips up into the armpits. Breathing evenly and deeply. Spread the palms. Bring the arms out nice and wide in line with the shoulders. Take a deep inhalation and then step or jump the feet apart. And then again, just feel that perception of balance. Work from the feet upwards. Just feel how the body feels on the floor, but without looking. Turn your left toes in and the right leg and foot all the way out. Feel that your feet are in the alignment that is correct for trikonasana. So this front foot is in line with the instep or the toes of the back foot. Never heel of this leg on heel of that leg. So just feel that your feet are in line, and then have a quick look, make sure that they are. Lift the shins out of the ankle sockets, lift the kneecaps, lift the thighs, and then come over. As you come over and find the shin, does your shift of weight land more heavily in your right leg than in your left leg? So activate that left leg really deeply, press it into the floor. See if you can even out the weight distribution of the pose into the back leg. Lift up into the top leg, so top arm, so that the weight on the shin becomes less. Turn the palm, turn the chest to face the ceiling. Reach out of the feet, up into the hips. Breathe evenly, soft in the jaw, soft in the tongue. Reach up with the top hand, come back to the center. Just rest your arms for a second. And then swap your feet. Just swap your feet around. Again, just feel that your feet are in the right position, and then have a look. Just make sure that they are. Sometimes we think they are and they're not. So get them into the right position and then reset what the feeling of the pose is. Get familiar with how the correct alignment of the feet feel. So we turn this left foot outwards, and then you've got to take that leg with it. Turn the leg with the foot. So this leg turns outwards. If there was an eye on the center of your upper thigh, would that eye be looking forwards, or would it be looking kind of out in line with the big toe? Is there that even distribution of weight between the 2 feet? Over to the side and keep that back leg really firm so that the weight distribution is even. Maybe this side feels different to the other. Breathe evenly, deeply listening to the sound of the breath, turning the chest up to face the ceiling. Soften the jaw and in the tongue. Just feeling that you can evenly distribute that feeling, perceiving the activation of the legs. So we go through an alert state, an active state, a sensitivity state, and a perceptivity state. Bend the front leg, bring the hand down onto the inside of the foot, bring the other side onto the outside of the foot, turn the back leg, and then step back into dog down. So perceive that the hands and the feet are in alignment through the feeling. Just check with your eyes, but rely on the feeling. Listen to the breath. So every pore of the skin becomes an eye. Okay, come down onto your knees. Just have the big toes together. Sit back on your heels. But then again, just notice the feeling at the backs of the knees. Notice the feeling just in the very back of the knee. And can you kind of open that up a little bit more? So come forwards. Bring your head onto the floor. Get your hand right into the back of the knee. Draw that calf flesh away. And then keep drawing the backs of the calves away from the back of the knee. Rolling the backs of the calves out. And then sit back on the feet. Again, observe how that feels at the backs of the knees, how there's a difference in the feeling of the back of the knee. Breathe evenly. Breathe deeply, just sitting down onto the heels, lifting and opening the chest. Walk your hands behind you, bring your hands underneath your shoulders. So if you've got problems with your back, you might just want to kind of stay at this stage, sitting on your heels. Push your hands into the floor, really consciously and perceptively. Push the hands into the floor and then lift from the wrists up into the elbows, up into the armpits. So you lift and open the chest and the front of the body comes open. Push the knees into the floor and then lift the tailbone. So be cautious of that if you've got back problems. Lengthen the sacrum spine down away from the lumbar. Lift the chest if you can. Draw your head back. And then bring the head back. Sit back on your heels. And then sit back on your knees. And then come forward into Adho Mukha Virasana. So that is a variation of paryankasana. So the legs aren't in the right position necessarily, but it's and we don't go all the way down, but it's a starting point. Breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. And then bring your hands back to the knees and then come up into a seated position. So we're going to go into Supta Virasana. So this can be strong on knees. So if this is too strong on your knees, or it can be strong on the back as well, but it's kind of, you know, it's pretty nice in the back actually, but it can, if you've got kind of a uncomfortable lumbar especially, it can be uncomfortable. But otherwise, so if this is not right for you, then you're going to do Supta Badakanasana. But I want you to use, so you come into a bit more traditional Virasana with the knees together, but then I want you to get a blanket. So unfold the blanket so it's like this, and then you're going to come onto your head. The knees are together this time, and then you're going to pull the blanket right into the back of the knee. Try not to bunch it up too much, but try and get the blanket right into the back of the knee. Then pull it away as you sit back down. So it does a couple of things. It gives you loads of space in the back of the knee, but it also prevents the knees from falling apart. And in Supta Virasana, the knees often will fall apart. So you got so you're not sitting directly on the floor. At least most people don't sit directly on the floor, but have the feet wide enough apart so that you can you could sit on the floor between the 2 feet. Get hold of the inner edge of the heels and then roll the inner edge of the heels out to the little toe side. So we're not trying to crack any bones. We're just trying to kind of just give ourselves a little bit of space, because when you roll that out, you'll feel the fronts of the shins open. So lift and open the chest. So the bolster is just behind you. You're not sitting on it. It's just behind you. And then you're going to just roll, or not roll, you're going to come back down onto your hands, a little bit like that paryankasana variation we just did. So lift and open the chest. Get that sense of lift before you come down, and then come down onto your elbows, keeping that sense of lift along the front of the chest, and then bring the body down. Just make sure that the bolster feels like it's in a straight line. And then stretch your arms up to the ceiling, interlock the fingers, and then extend your arms away from you. They may just be floating up in the air. You can always put a support underneath your hands if it's too strong. So feel that stretch of the front of the body. So if you're just doing Supta Badikanasana, you'll feel the stretch of the openness of the front chest. If you're doing Supta Virasana, you'll feel the length of the quads. You'll feel the length of the front chest. Breathe evenly into the pose. So the blanket stops the knees from falling apart. Just release the arms. So do this whether you're in Supta Badikanasana or Supta Virasana. Alter the interlock of the fingers and then extend your arms away. So if your knees become lighter, then turn the tailbone in a little more. Sometimes it means you have to come up a bit higher, so maybe you have to put a blanket on top of your bolster. I'm not going to stay too long. Just breathe evenly and deeply, just listening to the sound of the breath. Looks like everyone's in Supta Badikanasana. That's all right. Everyone release your arms. Bring your arms to the sides of the body. Draw your knees together if you're in Supta Badikanasana. Lift the chest Come up onto your elbows if you're in Supta Virasana, and then sit yourself up, come up onto all fours. Just have your just do a narrow dog down, just to refresh the action of the legs. So after opening the front of the body so intensely, does your dog down feel any different? Does it feel as though you have activated the front body? Especially the chest. The front legs often feel active anyway. We have to lift the fronts of the thighs, but the front chest often feels dull and forgotten. Maybe after the front chest stretches that we have done, the dog down feels a little different. Maybe the perceptivity of the chest is greater. Okay, when you have recovered, when your legs have recovered, just come down onto the floor and then come into a seated position. So sit yourself directly on the floor and have a couple of blocks where you can reach them. If we're going to do upavistha konasana, if you feel like you kind of roll, in fact, let's everyone sit ourselves on a folded blanket, but just sit on this corner end of the blanket so that all it's really doing is supporting the tailbone. So get the blanket, just sit on the edge of the blanket. So it's almost like it's only the tailbone that is supported. So just get the blanket in the right place, stretch the legs out, and then bring the legs wide apart. So just tuck the blanket underneath the tailbone. Just stops you from kind of rolling back. So it gives you a little space in the front body if this tailbone is supported. Bring the hands to the sides of the body, lift and open the chest. Just observe that perception of lift and openness in the front of the body. Breathe evenly and deeply. Just bring your hands onto your blocks in front. If you've got problematic back, just stay at this first stage. Press your hands down onto the block so that you can feel that there's this lift. Applying the pressure on the hands just helps you to lift and open the chest. If there's no problem with your back, just come come forwards a little, keeping the hands about shoulder width apart, activating those legs really firmly, pressing the thighs into the floor, turning the thighs inwards, hitting the inner knee down towards the floor, rotating the shins inwards so that the toes aren't rolling towards the back of the room, they're rolling up towards the ceiling or pointing up towards the ceiling. If you can come forwards a little more, then do. Press the hands onto the floor so that you can keep the front chest lifted. So this is about the front of the body. So often our perception of ourselves is stored in the front of the body. It's what we present to the world. So do we present openness to the world? Or are we defensive and are we closed to the world? So feel that the front chest is full of energy. That doesn't necessarily mean that you kind of, you kind of peacock. It means that you just bring your energy to the front of the body rather than to the back. But really, the balance is between the two, isn't it? It's not just all front body, all back body. It's the balance between the two. Back to the center. Just move the blocks out of the way. Just press the hands into the floor, and then almost like you're going to lift off the floor, extend the front chest upwards. And then get hold of the back of the knee, keeping the blanket underneath, pull the knees out to the side so that you come into Badakanasana. So seated Badikanasana with just the tailbone supported. Whip around the shins or grip the big toes. Sometimes I find that gripping around the big toes closes this area when really what we really want to do is open it. So, excuse me, you can grip around the shins and then you can keep the front chest much more open. Just feel the difference between the two. Perceive the change in your emotional feeling between the closed chest version and the open chest version. So broadening the collarbone is great for inner confidence. Feel that the chest is open, is lifting. Draw the shoulders down away from the ears. Breathe down into the abdomen. And close your eyes if you want. We do a couple of rounds of brahmari, pranayama. So remember, it's the hummed out breath, normal in breath. The chest lifted and open. As you get to the end of your brahmari exhalation, try not to let this happen. Try not to let the chest drop. Keep the chest lifted all the way through. So normal out breath, normal in breath, and then hum. Feeling the resonance through the bones. Just one more. And just bring the breath back to a normal rhythm. Just bring the knees in, stretch the legs out in front, and then just come back down using the blanket for your head. Come down into Shavasana shape. But before we do full Shavasana, just hold on to the sides of the mat and then just elevate the legs up to the ceiling for a few moments. Viparita, karanhi. Just observe the feeling of energy, of lightness that flows throughout the body. Attach your effort to that lightness. And then where the effort was too strong and maybe a little shaky, you can attach your effort to that feeling of lightness and the extension, then the effort becomes calmer, stiller, but still distinctly there. Okay, release, bend your knees, bring your feet down onto the floor. Just stretch your legs along the floor, just feel you're in a straight line. So have a quick look, make sure that you actually are. Move your equipment out of the way if it's in the way. And then bring your arms out to the sides of the body. Just allow the legs to fall apart. And allow yourself to release into the floor. So now letting go of the effort completely. Unhooking the muscles of the arms and of the legs, so we're not holding on to tension in the arms or in the legs. Let the arms and legs become heavy. And through that heaviness, find a joyful lightness that rises to the top of the skin. The energetic body. Connecting our effort into the energetic body. So just as like we were connecting our effort to extend the legs, connect to the effort, connect to the energy in letting go of effort. Use the in-breath and the out-breath to distribute the feeling of lightness down to the tips of the toes, the tips of the fingers, the top of the head. basking in that feeling of energetic lightness. Okay, when you're ready to disturb yourself, just wriggle your toes, wriggle your fingers. Just bring yourself back into this pose of Shavasana. Bend your knees. Just give yourself a little rock from side to side, from top to bottom. Just grounding yourself. And then roll onto your right side. Keep your eyes closed and then rub the palms of your hands really briskly together until you create heat between the palms of your hands. And then cover your eyes with the warm palms. Open your eyes in the dark warmth of the palms. And then just very gently allow your hands to come away from the face so that your eyes start to fill with light gently. And then stretch up the top leg, come up into a seated position, just a final cross legs with your hands in Namaste, just a final spinal lift. Just feel how the body is alive, full of positive energy. Draw your breath down into the abdomen, the somatic region. Be conscious of the energy that you have released through your practice this morning, that good, positive, healthy flow of clean energy that the extensions, the forward bends, the twists, the inversions bring to the body and to the mind. And then draw your chin down to meet your chest. Spend a moment to acknowledge the positive energy you've created inside. And then send some of that positive energy out into the world. And then release the backs of your hands down toward your knees, palms facing upwards. And then as you raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open and the focus to softly come back. Thank you very much. Thank you. So hopefully you feel as though you have given yourself a good old stretch, but a balanced stretch. So you're stretching the front of the body as well as the back of the body, and that gives you like kind of an evenness of sensation. So thank you very much.